In Lesson 3.11, you saw how you can use server.transfer and response.redirect to send values between pages. Session is another way of transferring values between pages. But session values don't just travel between pages, they remain in place for as long as a user's session lasts. When a user first sends a request to the web server, they are assigned a session which keeps track of them until it has been 20 minutes, by default, since their last request. The session is then said to have timed out. Because session values persist for the user's entire session, it's not always appropriate to use them. Remember that your server will have to remember every session value that you set for every user on your site. It might seem like one session value wouldn't make much difference. But if you have thousands of users on your site, they will soon mount up. It is best to only use session to store values that need to be used across your entire site. Remember that after 20 minutes of activity, by default, a user's session will be removed, along with any session values. To begin this lesson, open the C# test sample file from your Sample Files folder. And open the code behind file of passdata1.aspx. Now remove the code from the button send click event handler and add the following code. Session text equals textbox text dot text. This code stores the contents of textboxtext.text, that is, the text that the user has typed into the text box, in session, under the key of text. Session keys work in exactly the same way as the viewState key that you used in Lesson 3.9. Now open the code behind file of passdata4.aspx and you're going to add some code to retrieve the value from session. Add the following code to the page load event handler. Label received data dot text equals session text dot toString. This code will retrieve the value stored under the text key from session and display it in a label control on the page. Note that this code would cause an exception if there was no value in session stored under the key of text. To avoid any errors, you'd ideally use an if statement to check for a null value before accessing session. You'll learn about if statements in Lesson 7.1, and you'll learn about null in Lesson 5.12. Finally, you'll need to add some code to passdata1 to transfer the user to passdata4. Open the code behind file of passdata1.aspx, add a new line to the button send click event handler, and add the following code. Page.response.redirect passdata4.aspx. As you learned in Lesson 3.10, this code will send the user to the passdata4.aspx page after placing the contents of the text box in session text. Passdata4.aspx will then retrieve the value from session and display it. View passdata1.aspx in your browser now. Change the text in the text box if you wish. And click Send to Next Page. PassData4.aspx retrieves the text that you typed from session and displays it on the page. Some large-scale web applications spread their traffic over multiple web servers. This is known as a web farm. Session variables that are stored on one web server in the farm will not be automatically shared with other web servers. This means that users can lose all of their session variables if the web farm sends their request to a different server. This problem can be fixed by running something called State Server, which maintains session variables across all of the servers in the web farm. Close your web browser now and close Visual Studio. You've now completed Lesson 3.12. Use Session.